Good morning everyone. No assembly this morning as the hall is being used, so you've got me on our TV channel. What I'm going to talk about this morning is that plaque that you see when you come in first thing in the morning through the main entrance. I wonder how many of you have actually looked at it. If you read it and stop it, it says the Weald School, by Endeavour We Conquer. And what I want to do this morning is tell a little bit of the story of what that is all about. Just recently on BBC TV there was a programme to decide who was the greatest person of the 20th century. A whole range of people. Alan Turing won. You might actually like to stop the video now and just see if you can figure out who the remaining 4 people are. I'll tell you though if you've done that. We've got Nelson Mandela. We've got Emmeline Pankhurst, one of the suffragettes, the leaders of the suffragettes at the turn of the century. And we've got the last one on the bottom right, Ernest Shackleton. And if I had a dinner party, these are 4 people I'd love to have to come to dinner. Ernest Shackleton, it would be over 100 years ago, put an advert in the Times newspaper and he said this: men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honour and recognition in case of success, Ernest Shackleton. Because what he was doing, he was starting an expedition that actually started in 1917, and he sailed to the South Pole, to Antarctica, and he wanted to cross to Ross Island. You can see that on the little graphic that you've got now. But it wasn't to be, and something happened that stopped Ernest Shackleton getting there. The greatest number of people that Ernest Shackleton ever led was 23. And here's a picture of him on his way down to the South Atlantic with his crew on his boat, the Endurance. You see, his family motto was, by endurance we conquer. And so he named his boat after that motto. And there he is in the white sweater and the trilby cap in the centre of the picture. It wasn't long before his boat, the Endurance, trying to get to the South Pole, and they're going to go across by land to Ross Island, got stuck in the ice. Wedged in the ice. He wasn't too panicked though. He'd been on these kind of expeditions before. He'd been with Captain Scott as he tried to get to the South Pole a few years before. So he thought he'd wait it out. He had a great crew and he was absolutely fantastic at getting his crew to work together. Here's a picture of them having their meals. And one of the things that he recognised was important in such situations to keep men busy. He arranged football matches. He got them scrubbing the decks. There was a rota throughout every day and every week. And morale, despite the boat, the Endurance boat being trapped in ice, remained really, really high. Conditions were cramped though. It didn't matter. Shackleton was a marvellous leader and spirits were high. But it didn't go well. What happened over a period of time, despite the crew trying to heave the boat out of the ice, the boat was crushed. And they had to decamp the whole contents of the boat onto the ice. They tried initially to drag their 3 lifeboats across the ice to open water, but they were too heavy. So what they did was they camped on the solid ice, and here's a photograph of them doing just that. They called it Ocean Camp. They caught seals, they cooked them in their little stoves, and here's Shackleton with his captain doing just that. They caught penguins, they caught seals, so they weren't too badly off for food. But after a period of time, as summer came, the ice broke up, and then they had to navigate through the ice floes, eventually putting their boats on ice floes and camping overnight on the ice floes. And they realised that they needed to sail somewhere, otherwise they were going to die. And they managed to get to, after a period of days, to a place called Elephant Island, a desolate place. There were a few seals, a few penguins. It was hundreds of miles from anywhere, and it wasn't in the kind of mainstream of things. They weren't going to be discovered by whalers or fishermen or anything like that. So they realised after a week or so there that they were going to have to send out a rescue party. So they got the biggest lifeboat of them, the James Caird. They rigged it up. They put a few bits and pieces on the sides to make sure big waves couldn't come over. And Shackleton and 5 of his crew set off for the 800-mile trip to South Georgia, where he'd started out about 2.5 years before. 800 miles. Incredible. And South Georgia is the size of the Isle of Wight. Went with 5 crew, mountainous waves, and they managed to do it. his captain, Frank Worsley, who was with him on that boat, wrote a book about it. And it's an enthralling read, and you just think, how on earth do they manage to do this? They just had a tiny compass, sails, huge seas, 30, 40, 50-foot waves. And eventually they arrived at South Georgia. Here's South Georgia. Those bits of blue there are icebergs. It's in the southern waters, and the ice takes on, when it's compressed, a very beautiful blue colour. And so Shackleton arrived on the west of the island. The winds were so strong he daren't go round to the east of the island because they thought they'd be blown off, and he wouldn't survive. So there he was on the west of the island, and you can see a whole bunch of penguins, etc. But you can see the mountains in the background. And what he had to do was to climb over those mountains to get to the other side, to the inhabited part of the island, where there was a whaling station. Those mountains had never been climbed before, but he and two of his colleagues climbed them, and over a period of a couple of days they managed to get to the other side, and they walked into the whaling station. Here's a photograph taken over 100 years ago of that whaling station in Stromness. And he went up and knocked on one of the doors of the whalers, and they didn't recognise him because, of course, he'd been trapped in ice for 2 years. He'd been sailing from Elephant Island to South Georgia, and they didn't recognise him. But from there they set out a rescue party, and on their third attempt, I think it was with a Chilean steamer, they managed to rescue him. So this school recognises the crew of the Endurance and Ernest Shackleton as a fantastic explorer and as a great leader and a great team builder. And I think one of the reasons that we recognise him when we've got that little panel in the front of the school is because he and his team showed something spectacular. It's something called grit, and there's a definition there in front of you. Well, two definitions. Grit are those loose small particles you find in the bottom of your shoes that give you blisters and make it difficult to walk. But there's something else as well. It's courage and resolve and strength of character. It's the ability to keep going when other people drop out. And that's one of the things that we are really keen to try and help develop in you here at the Weald. Not only for you to get through your time with us, doing your exams and just being a student with us, but in later life. Because life throws a lot of curveballs at you. It's not always easy. And you need not to give up. And one of the things that Shackleton and his crew did, he didn't give up. And we want the same thing to be true of you. So every term we have an award, a Shackleton Award. We introduced it a few years ago in 2016, and that was the 100th anniversary of Shackleton being rescued, or Shackleton rescuing his crew on Elephant Island. And there's the award. There's a picture of Ernest Shackleton, and there's the medal. I think actually that was the first version of the medal. We've got a even better medal now, with more gold and other bits and pieces in it. And every term we get some nominations in from heads of house and your teachers, and we present 2 Shackleton Awards, and it's largely for grit. We've changed his family motto. His family motto, if you remember, was "By endurance we conquer," and we've changed that to "By endeavour we conquer." So endeavour is about trying, and not giving up. So we present the Shackleton Award to those students that we think have shown real grit and determination. There it is. Next time you're going past reception, stop and have a read of the story of Shackleton. Make sure you understand it and realise why it's quite significant in our history as a country. Why did he succeed? When others failed, when others may have given up and everyone might have died, Shackleton's crew didn't. Fantastic teamship. Endeavour, resilience, grit, determination, steel, backbone, spirit and resolve. And those are the kind of qualities that we want you to show as you work with us here at the Weald, but also later in life. So on the bottom of the little plaque in reception, it says this: the successful outcome was testament to the courage, teamwork, grit and determination of the whole crew. It is to such examples that we here at the Weald strive, and so by endeavour we conquer. I hope that you can do that too. Thank you for listening.